Mill 3D enhancements, blend. The blend tool path is taken off now. So a lot of options in blend that we'll take a look at. A couple of them here are number of passes, and we can flip the step over also by just a switch in there. Blend flip step over. So we can come from center, go to center. So a lot of different options in there. Contact points, and a few new cut methods also in there. Raster, we'll take a look at raster here in a file. Raster has made a change, and now we have automatic for a machining angle. That's kind of a nice little switch in there. As far as, you can see the pictures on the right, 0 degrees, going to be left to right. Automatic kind of finds the section and kind of flips the machining angle to try to make it the best that it can in that section. So kind of got a couple pictures there, set to 90 and then set to automatic, and you can kind of see the changes there. So we'll take a little bit of look at raster, see some of the changes there. And in raster, you still have perpendicular fill. That's just in more of a custom option now. And then in 2021, OptiRough had one addition, and that is skip all pockets, which is a big one. OptiRough is a great tool path for roughing. As we all know, the one downfall to me was every time you do an OptiRough, if there's pockets it could fit in, it wanted to go do them pockets first. And, there's a few situations where maybe I didn't want that. So we'll talk about what we had to do and what we can do now. So we're going to go ahead and take a look at a file here for an OptiRough file. So here's our part. I can turn on some stock here. So we're just going to OptiRough that part out of this stock. So I'm just going to go ahead and start a tool path, an OptiRough tool path. And in here, I'm going to leave 20 thou on the walls, 20 on the floors, and I'm going to go ahead and pick my whole part here. And if you didn't know, 3 fast left clicks will pick the whole model, and I can end selection. So in here, my toolpath control, I want to cut it out of that block of material, so I'm going to pick a boundary chain here in this case. I'm going to go ahead and turn that on, just pick this face. My strategy will be from outside, so really we're not seeing any differences here. I'm just go ahead and programming this part. I'll go ahead and grab a tool. I'll just grab a 1/2-inch ISCAR tool. And my cut parameters, are all standard yet, so I'll just go 15% step overs. I'll go heavy down, so 200% down, and I'll turn up some step ups to 50 thousandths. That'll be fine for my cuts, what I need here. And steep shallow, I'll go ahead and detect some limits, and I'll right click in here and maybe grab the bottom of that part, somewhere on the bottom there, just so I don't cut into my vise or in my fixturing. And that's all looking good, so I'm just going to go ahead and green check, and we're going to see what we get out of here. So one thing that we can do here is we'll take a look at this, and there is a way to get around these holes in here. So if I go ahead and run this, you'll see there it goes right through the center, goes into the other pockets, and then cuts the outside. Well, a lot of cases I want to cut the outside first and maybe come into them pockets a little different way. So initially we didn't have any say here, but what we could do is we could also set some avoidance regions. So in my levels manager here, I made some plugs. So let me get rid of this tool path so we can see. And we could always plug these if we wanted to, and then we could come up into here and pick them as avoidance and regenerate that, and then we'd get more of kind of what we're after, and we'd have to come back and do the holes however we want to attack them with OptiRough or with 2D dynamic. So it was a workaround. You had to go ahead and you had to manually put these surfaces in, which depending on what they are, maybe easier, maybe harder. So now that's just working up that angle and not even touching that inner circle. So that was a workaround for us. not the best one. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to get rid of these avoidance regions, or plugs, I should say. And I'm going to go into my toolpath control. Now there's one main switch here that has changed. Everything's the same except for over on the right here. It's called skip pockets that they added in here. So we can skip smaller than, or we can skip all. So it tells you, you know, it kind of gives you say, what do I want to skip? Do I want to put a size in there that I want to skip smaller than, or do I just want to skip all? In this case, I'm just going to say skip all. Go ahead and green check and regenerate that. And I'm going to take off my plug surfaces. And it's going to regenerate here. And now any pocket, it's not going to dive into doing an entry method. It's just going to work its way from the outside in. So now if I'm looking at this, now I get a strategy. It's not touching the inside. Now I didn't have to plug them holes now in this case. And if we watch this run, it really shows well when we run this to see what this is doing. So I'm going to run this into verify here. And we'll see as it gets to the, it won't even touch the middle pocket, that round pocket, but the end pocket there that it was diving in before. What it'll do is it'll just work its way as deep as it can into that pocket, so it'll remove a bunch of material without having to do any entry methods. Now that's the main thing here. See, there it goes. It went in there, worked from the outside in instead of trying to plunge into that pocket. That's going to be a lot better strategy, a lot less material sitting there to, you know, bottom cut or drill or whatever you have going on there. So this little function here can be quite handy for a lot of people. Don't have to do them plug surfaces anymore if you just want to avoid any pockets. And it'll work as deep as it can. So I definitely like this one. I've been after something like this for a while, and I'm pretty happy with this one. And that's about it for OptiRough. They really didn't get into a lot of changes here. It's just mainly the skip pockets. Everything else is going to run the same as we're used to in here. So definitely, if you're an OptiRough programmer, I think you would like this. I think it's a great idea. So try it out and let us know what you think. Next one we're going to discuss here is the 2021 automatic raster angle. So this is just going to be for the raster toolpath, the high-speed raster toolpath. And we're going to see, you know, the automatic angle that they added to maybe hopefully increase the way we're cutting parts a little better with the raster toolpath. So we're going to take a look at a file here for raster. And here's our file. And we're going to work on this corner mainly here. So what we have is maybe we're processed to this point with our OptiRough. And we got to finish this off here with our raster. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a raster on a few of these surfaces going around this corner of this part. So I'm going to come into my tool paths here, and I'm going to go to raster, my high-speed raster. And I'm going to zero these numbers out. If you didn't know, there is a shortcut here to zero them numbers. It's right here. If you click on that, that'll zero all these numbers out. So I kind of like that one. And I'm going to go and select my surfaces. Now, in my options here, there's a lot of selection options if you're not familiar with these. So what I can do is I can shift click on these. And it selects pretty much all of my surfaces that I wanted there that are tangent. So that's kind of a nice feature. If you're not utilizing that, pay attention to these boxes here. They give you a lot of nice options for selection. I'm going to go to my toolpath control, and I'm really not going to do anything in here. So we're just going to see what we get from a typical raster toolpath and work out from there. So I'm going to change this to 20 thousandths. And a zigzag, and I will keep this down at 100%. Steep, shallow, we're just going to leave the same. Like I said, I'm not really changing a whole lot here. 3 inches will give me above the part, and then I'm just going to change these to shrink these down a little bit. Typically these are kind of bad defaults, so usually you have to change these to get some results that you want. And I'm just going to green check, and we'll take a look and see what we get here. So we didn't get a terrible motion on this, but still it's not great. Right here is really a problem. If we look at that, it's going right through the part. So it's going to gouge through the top section of that part. And we got some jumps in here, not too bad. With the heavy, keep tool down value, we were able to get rid of a lot of stuff. But we do have a lot going on in here, not really following the surface as well. So we can optimize this a little bit here. So if I come into my tool paths and edit some tool paths, we can pick avoidance. So if I come in here and pick this top face as avoidance, what that'll do is that'll fix that gouge. And then if I come into my steep shallow and change this to maybe like a 55 degree, maybe that'll also help me out here a little bit so I'm not getting inside of here. And see, and it's not great yet, but it's not too bad of a tool path. Not gouging up on the top corner here anymore. Looks good there. So the change in raster here is automatic. So it's going to be in here as far as, you had your custom machining angle with perpendicular fill. If we go to automatic, you do lose perpendicular fill. So if I just turn this automatic on, green check and regenerate, now you'll see that my tool path is going to change. And it's going to try to pick the best case scenario for this part. So now do you see how it's going up them ramps a little better? It's kind of following up these and back down instead of straight across. That's what automatic's going to do for you, and you see how much cleaner that motion looks on there. If we were doing multiple different sections, it would change each individual sections around for us to try to optimize that cut. So if you're doing more than one section that aren't connected, it'll try to improve that out best case scenario by looking at the feature itself. So not a huge change. Just wanted to be aware of if you're a raster fan using raster. Automatic can help that out. If we'd come into here and leave this like this and go back to custom, it's a little easier to see all the pickups. Now if I go back and go to automatic with the same parameters, it's still got some retracts, but it is a lot better motion, a lot better, cleaner motion, especially in this pocket feature. And we got a lot better rolls in there. So it does work. It does work pretty well. I'm pretty happy about that one also. So that's another one hopefully you'll take a look at with raster. And if you're a big raster fan, maybe that one can help you guys out, get smoother toolpath motion. Next section we'll take a look at here is apply transitions. This was a big change here for all of our 3D high-speed toolpaths. And this allows us to extend our cuts, kind of control our cuts a lot more, mainly our transitions on how are we getting to the next cut. So let's go ahead and take a look at a file here that I have for this. And this is a mold, and we're going to do the center section there to start out with equal scallop. So I'm going to go up to my 3D toolpath and pick equal scallop. I'm going to zero out my stock to leave. I'm just going to pick these 4 surfaces here. I'm also going to pick some avoidance here, and I can just simply shift click on this and it'll pick all the surfaces around there for me. So if you're not doing the shortcuts for selection, definitely check them out. They are in this option box here. Toolpath control, I'm not going to worry about a boundary, but I'm going to turn on my projected boundary smoothing tolerance to 0.25 of a millimeter. This will help out any noise on top. It'll try to smooth out your toolpaths towards the avoidance boundaries. So I definitely highly suggest using this if you're not using this now. We're going to do a closed offset. So it's just going to echo in from the outside. Tool is just going to be a 4 millimeter tool. Cut parameters, we're just going to leave this to one way. And I'm just going to go 1 millimeter. And I'm going to keep my tool down 100%. So not a lot of changes here, and we're not going to change a whole lot in here to begin with. So we're just going to kind of see what we get here and see what we think. I'm going to zero some of these out. These are usually bad numbers in here, or high numbers if you don't default them. So I'm just going to get rid of a bunch of them. And we'll green check and see what we get here for a toolpath. So here's our toolpath. This is something that we're used to probably, or hopefully. And each one of these purple lines in here is a transition. So the problem with this possibly for you, and some people this isn't an issue, but you're going to see that transition move. So in between each one of them blue lines is the purple line. That's the transition to the next cut. If you can't have them, you used to not have too many ways to get around that, but now we have a lot of ways to get around this. So we can come into our parameters now and we can start taking a look at some of the options. So what we have here is, and one way around that would be to go to the transitions page and turn this to like a 0 and regenerate that. And now I get a lot smoother motion. I don't get the purple line all the way around, but I still get a transition in between. So I'm still going to see that line in there. So that's not really too much of a fix, but you have a lot less to try to polish out of there. If we come into our linking parameters page, there's a apply transitions button here now. That's a brand new button. So if we apply transitions, what that's going to do is that's going to roll in and roll out of every cut instead of following the surface. So if I green check this and regenerate it, now we're seeing that we're getting kind of a goofy transition line into here. So now if I backplot this, it's going to roll into the first cut, cut around, roll out of the cutter, roll back around, roll back around. So you're not getting any of the transition moves in between the cuts. And that can be kind of key for some people. If you are going for a pattern on the surface that you do not want to have the transitional moves in between on, well, here's your answer here. Now we can roll in and roll out of these cuts. It kind of makes it nice, nice option. Instead of having them transitional moves along there. Another thing we can do here to maybe help this out a little bit is maybe we could come in and come into our toolpath control and do a trimmed offset now. So trimmed offset is going to trim it per a curve, so it's going to echo out from that curve. So if I come in here and pick a curve, I'm just going to pick an edge here, so I'll start there, work it along. And now if I green check out of there and regenerate, now I should get some nice clean motion along that surface, which I did. So it echoed out from there. Now I still have one way on, so I'm going to come back in here and I'm going to change my cut parameters to zigzag to make it look a little nicer and cleaner here. And now I have some nice motion along there with roll ins and roll outs of each cut. So instead of doing the transition on the surface, now you'll see it's going to roll in, roll out, roll back in, roll back out. So now I'm getting a nice clean cut along there that it's not doing any of its transitional moves on the surface. So I'm getting a straight line on my part instead of the transitional moves, which can be huge for certain situations that you run into with your parts. So this is definitely a nice move, is to apply transitions. You know, if I take that apply transitions off just to see, we'll regenerate that. Now see how our transitions are on the part now again. So we're going to be seeing them moves on all the edges, or maybe that's creating some havoc with us with deburring or with polishing more than anything probably. If we can't have them little moves up on top, you know, maybe that's an issue for you in you guys' situation back at the shop. I'm going to go ahead and do a raster on this also. So we're going to go do a raster. I'm going to zero these out and I'm going to pick the surface here. And I'm going to pick some avoidance. I'm going to pick here and here for avoidance. Toolpath control, I'm just going to say include silhouette boundary. Same tool. And our step overs, I'm just going to go 1 millimeter again, just to get her past there. And we'll just zigzag back and forth. And now another option here, if we apply transitions, now what I can do is I have an extension option here. And that used to never be in there. So now I could extend my cuts automatically. So if I come in here and put a 1/2 millimeter, green check. And it looks like I'm getting some funny funny moves there because I have some heavy numbers in here. So once again, most of the time if you're getting some weird stuff in here, the best thing to do is to come in here and to zero some of these out. So now if I regenerate this, now I get a nice clean motion here. And you're seeing it, it's extending off. Now let me put a little bit bigger extension number in there. Let's go like 5 millimeters. You're not seeing much of a change there. And the reason for that is right here. So if I come in here and I'm going to just clean these out for right now, give us a good example of what this will do. Now do you see how it went past? So I'm getting a nice extension pass. Now that's quite drastic. I'm going 5 millimeters. But now with the applied transitions on, I can extend the cut. I'm going to roll in. And there's a couple little mismatches on top there. And now it'll find it and continue on here. So it rolls out, rolls back in with our transitions. It's kind of a nice option. If we go back and if I add these back as avoidance, like I had before, and if I put any value in here, let's just put 3 millimeters in there. Now if I regenerate the same cut, it does respect them surfaces. So if you have stock to leave on there, it's not going to gouge in even with the extensions. It knows better, so now it needed to cut that back so it didn't gouge into the surface since I left 3 millimeters on there. So it'll work the same process back and forth. It's just going to trim the tool path essentially back for you so it doesn't gouge on its lead in and lead outs there. So it's smart enough to know that, and it's a pretty cool option that we never had. In the old parallel tool path, we were able to extend, tangential extensions, but now we can do it in our high-speed tool paths, and they work in all of them. So make sure you're taking a look at that in the linking parameters page. If I come back to this top surface, can fix this one back up to apply transitions again. And I'm going to extend this one out 3 millimeters. Now if I green check out of there, how it extends these surfaces out also. So that can be handy for some people too. Now it's a tangential extension, so it's not going to follow this surface here. It's going to follow the end surface that it was on. So you see it just extends off of that surface, and comes back in. So you get really nice transitional moves there. None of that rolling on the edges. So if you're looking for a true sharp edge there, this is a great opportunity to do this. So definitely take a look at your apply transitions option here and the extension button. Them two are the new ones here. And if you're ever in these toolpaths getting bad results, make sure you look at these numbers here. Some of these need to be lowered or zeroed out to get really what you're after. Otherwise, you may be getting some big lead in and lead outs in there. So definitely take a look at it. That's an awesome fix there that they did, or enhancement, I should say. Next section will be our high-speed toolpath blend toolpath. This one has been pretty much all refined here. A lot of new options for our blend toolpath. And we'll take a look at it on a part that I have mocked up here. So on this part here, this is that mold that we were working on before. We're going to focus on this section right here where it's kind of a skin-colored little radius here. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a blend toolpath on there, see kind of all the options, and kind of see what the new options can do for us. So I'm going to go to my 3D toolpath, and I'm going to go to blend, and I'm going to zero out my stock to leave, and go ahead and pick my surface. On my toolpath control here, I'm not going to worry about any boundaries, but I'm going to pick my two blend curves. So I'm going to go ahead and pick this curve here and this curve here. Remember, your chains need to go in the same direction on blend. And the toolpath is going to blend in between the two. I'm just going to leave it at tool tip here. I'm going to go ahead and grab my tool. And then cut parameters here, kind of the same options that you are probably familiar with. I'm just going to go to 1 millimeter for a step over. And we have some new options here that we're going to discuss heavily here. So we have a project 2D and a project 3D. So I'm going to leave it on 2D for now. The direction across and along is going to follow kind of along that shape. Across, go a cross cut on there. So we'll see. We're probably going to leave it to along in this case. It's a better cut, but that's what that is for. As far as everything else goes here, nothing to really change here. We'll come back into this page here. There's some heavy changes we like to look at here. So I'm just going to green check, see what we get out of this tool path. It generates quite quickly here. This isn't a big part, and we'll see that we have a tool path there. Now, one thing that I like to notice is if we go to our top view, how we are on the 2D blend mode, what it's going to do is going to project the blends from our C-plane, so flat. And as you can see here, our blends are kind of increasing on the end here, so it's not consistent from here to here. Now, there's nothing we can do about that with the 2D mode. So this is where we start to use our 3D mode. Now, 2D works great for horizontal areas, but anytime we have a horizontal start, like it's on this edge, that's falling off the edge into a vertical drop, then our 3D can come in very handy to recompress these cuts and even them out so we have equal surface finish here to the tip. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. I'm going to go back into my tool path, and I'm going to flip. All I'm going to do is flip this to 3D. And I want you to notice the difference specifically on this end here. So once we come back into there, now do you see how much more consistent that is on that surface? So that's really the key here of what 3D and 2D will do. If you have a flatter surface, 2D will be fine. If you have a 3D surface that it's falling off, that can greatly fix situations like this. Now we got an even cut from here to here, so our surface finish is going to flow and be approximately all the same there, and that's kind of a key. Some more with this tool path. We didn't cut all the way down to the bottom here. So if we come back into this tool path and into our tool path control page, they added this. So on our curves, we can say contain to the tool tip or to the tool contact point. Well, I'm on tool tip now, and I cannot get cuts all the way to the bottom because my tool tip is down there. So if I go to tool contact point and green check and regenerate this, I'll get a little bit different look. Now I got my tool path going all the way down to the bottom, is what I kind of want there, obviously. So that is a quick fix there. We have our lead in here and we have our lead out there. We're also going to look at some of the other options in here and how to control this a little better to even get better cuts. Because if we are down on the edge there, our transition moves are kind of bad here, and we may get little nicks on the bottom of that surface. So what we can do is we can come in here and we can start to look at some of these other parameters. So we already have this set to 3D, and that fixed anything that's going for a horizontal down to a vertical surface. If we can't get even step overs, that will fix us. If I come into my linking parameters page, now what I can do is I can start to apply some transitions, and we've seen this a little earlier. So I could apply a transition here, and we'll see what we get. We may have to come back. And yeah, it looks like we're going to be coming back. So I got quite the transitional moves here. They're kind of all over the board. So what I can do is I can come back in here and this one's one of them. So we can machine the entire pass. That'll definitely help there. And we can also come into our cut parameters. Anytime I'm seeing big leaps like that, or stuff that's kind of jumping all over the place, usually it's this number. So I'm just going to go to 500% here. And I'm also going to change these options. So there are a couple options in here they added, from center and to center. So if I go from center in this case, this would probably be a good situation for this. And if I green check out of there, I can regenerate this. I'm getting a little closer here. I'm still getting some big numbers in here. So my transitions are starting to become fixed, but they still need some work here. So now I'm working from center and come back into the cut because I have apply transitions on. So it's looping out of the cut and looping back into the cut. Now I don't really like that cut there at all. So I'm going to go back and take a look at this and see where I have an issue in here. And I got some big numbers in here once again that are getting me. So remember these buttons here. If you get some weird transitions like we're seeing, typically it's in here is the problem. So if I go and regenerate that, now we'll see nice transitions. So that cleaned that up quite a bit. So I'm starting at the center and working my way up out of the cut, rolling back down. It's a really nice transition this way. So it's easy on our machine to do that nice roll over that cut, roll back into the edge. And I'm on contact point, so it's making sure it's maintaining a cut all the way down to the bottom of that surface and rolling back in, rolling all the way back to the top. So this is nice. Quite a bit of options in Blend that make it a lot more useful. As far as the 2D button goes, the 3D button contain to the guide curves, to the tool tip or tool contact point. So there's a lot of nice changes here. And then with the apply transitions, now we get these nice roll-ins and roll-outs if we want them, which is really nice for surface finish. A few other options in here. Now we can limit the number of passes, so we can tell it, maybe give me 3 passes that you're going to echo out. So maybe if I put this at 3, we'll see what we get here. And now I got 3 passes. Now that didn't show too well, so maybe I want to come back in here and put a little more in there. I'll put 10 in there and see what it looks like. So now I have 10 passes in here. So it had to widen it out a little bit, as you can see. So the option in here is number of passes. Is it tell it, just give me 6 passes. That's all I need. Maybe I'm semi-roughing this out or something where I just want to say, give me this many passes. Don't do 30 in there. Just give me 10. So it does allow you to do that. And then I can also flip my step over here. So if I flip my step over, regenerate that. Now it'll just step the opposite way that it was. It goes the opposite direction. There are a couple changes in there. There's a flatten chains option, and this is only available in 2D. You're not going to notice anything on this specific situation, but what flatten chains does is if you have a 3D chain that you pick, and when I'm in 2D mode, I can say flatten the chain. Now, what that'll do is it'll take a 3D chain and project it flat. So you may get a little bit of a difference in what pattern you get and how it's projecting along them. Where that can come in handy is if you're going to be in 2D mode and you're kind of on a vertical wall. That can help you in that case also a little bit. So definitely check that out. As far as the other options, and here everything's pretty much the same. Just make sure machine entire pass can come in handy here. Otherwise, it's trying to trim these passes back also. So make sure you keep a note on that. That's always been in there. It's just not being used too much these days, it seems. And, once again, if we wanted to extend this, maybe I could extend this by 3 millimeters. Once again, that would do the same thing here. It's going to extend them cuts past, as we can see here. If we needed to get past on them, we got to be careful there. We are gouging there, and what we could do is always call that a avoidance if we wanted to. But then this nice transition moves into here. So the 2D switch into the 3D switch is huge. Once again, if we look at this, let me get out of here. You can see how they're widening out here. If I come back in here and flip this back to 3D, now this should be cranked back in, so a lot more consistent. So definitely take a look, and looks like I need to do some transitional work there. But definitely take a look at that and see if you can utilize the blend toolpath a little more than we have previous. It's reworked, and it seems to be working pretty well. So tools you need for that toolpath, the 2D, 3D switches, the flatten curves, all of that will play into certain situations. So make sure you're using them tools when you get into them situations. Once again, our 2021 installation documents, they are available. So if you want to get up to par here, get everything installed with 2021, make sure you're contacting us to get the PDF files. We have PDF files made for everything with links and everything built into them. And you can just contact support at prototech-engineering.com for all of that. And then Prototech training, we are training. Our training center is open, so make sure you visit our website for upcoming training classes. And they'll be all listed there at prototech-engineering.com along with our rollouts. That's where you will sign in for our rollouts. You can get the login information. And as always, thank you guys. Thanks for attending this webinar, and thanks for being a Mastercam customer.